Oh, how you do, folks? Hope you're doing well. It was a little bit too late yesterday to do a video, so I didn't bother. So here we are. Uh, it's Saturday, and I'll do a video. In this video, I warn you, I might get labelled a chauvinist pig. Well, don't warn you. I know I warn myself because this is where we're going this evening. There's often an age-old argument, I suppose, as to out of the male and female, who is the brighter sex, the more intelligent sex? Well, I have to confess, women. Women are far brighter academically than men. This has been shown the world over. Historically, it has never really come to light as that statistic, primarily because men did the statistics. And women were oppressed by the men. Certainly looking at the Victorian times, when they're all male and female sitting around a dinner and all having nicey-niceys. And the men are talking about local government issues and yada, yada, yada. And then the woman says, well, I think da, 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 da. And there's absolute silence. And the men look at each other and then look at the woman and then look at each other. I say, oh dear, did she speak? Oh no, she seems to have had an opinion. How very dare she? This is how women were treated in the Victorian times. And nothing much has changed, quite frankly. Not with the old boy network anyway. But if you go to, I don't know, I spend a lot of time in a place like Cambridge Veterinary School, for example. If you go to the veterinary university and have a look at the new intake for students, and looking at the medical schools and look at the wall where it says new intake, and they got all the mugshots of those coming in this year to become vets or doctors. Well, predominantly it's women, quite frankly. And I spoke to quite a high head honcho in charge of a veterinary school in Cambridge University, and in UK. And I said, what's the deal here? What's all these mugshots? And she said to this girl, she said, the woman who was on the panel for selecting students, she looked and she said, these are the new uptake for 2018. I thought, that's interesting. Where are the boys? She goes, well, they don't hack it generally. Either there's no incentive for them to do it, and those that do it drop out, sadly, because it's a 5/6 year degree course. It is a rock solid academic course, is veterinary medicine. And equally, they got so much to cram into that time to churn out veterinary surgeons throughout the UK. And it's the same with the medical schools. And if you look at the medical school intake, strangely enough, for most university hospitals, those are teaching hospitals, most of them are foreign. And it begs the question, where are all the white folk? Well, anyway, but predominantly they are women. Because it seems that the men of today just don't seem to be that interested in medicine or veterinary work. Because it's a tough course, number one, academically very tough. And number two is the men ain't got the sticking power. The new breed of the millennial male seems that he ain't that academic, quite frankly. What a surprise. So historically, women are taking over the show. And it's a bit of a concern, I have to confess. But hey-ho, as they say, every dog has its day. And the truth will out, because the oppression of women since Victorian times has eased off to such an extent that women are blossoming. Sorry guys, it's bad news. But then when you transpose that into relationships, this is where it becomes a little bit pear-shaped and dangerous for yours truly doing a video like tonight. When men must take back control. Yes, that's the flavour. Because men couldn't be so dumb at times. It's staggering the number of guys I meet who do dumb things within their relationships. Now, I am not a relationship guru, but I have, quite frankly, gone past the silver wedding anniversary quite successfully, thank you, with two terrifically educated and cultured kids, and it ain't by accident. And I love my wife dearly and vice versa, and we're one of the success stories, I suppose, lucky old us, since 2 out of 3 marriages are occurring in divorce. Or divorce occurs within 2 out of 3 marriages. We're the lucky ones then. But we had our tough times. Oh, for sure. Both ways. But one thing I would say is that women might be more academic, but they do want, on the whole, they don't want all the responsibility on their shoulders. Many times they want a lot of the perks without the responsibilities. And very often, sweeping statement coming up alert, a lot of women want a clone of their father as their husbands, because girlies love their daddies. They truly do. And guess what? Boys love their mummies. That's true for the most part. There is an inverse affinity, isn't there? It's almost like the Oedipus complex, where the boy doesn't want to come off the tit and resents his real father for it. Because the man has to teach the man to man up. The man has to teach the boy to man up and become a man and grow a pair. But the millennials, it seems, have lost them, the pair. So in this video, I just want to talk about typically what goes wrong from my experience, not in my own personal experience, from my observational experience of having lots of friends whose marriages have gone tits up, to figure out quite what's gone wrong. And there's not going to be any names mentioned. So, when you look at the common denominator of problems that I've spoke to men about who have left their wives, or the whole relationship's tumbled down, there seems to be common things that crop up. Money or the lack of it, sex or the lack of it, that's certainly true. Respect, mutual or the lack of it. Doesn't quite do what it says on the can. Lots of that. So false advertising, should we leave it at that? But let's look at this. The other one, of course, is money and the lack of it, the biggie. But let's look at this. The other thing is that the women have historically had traits, and even the modern women have traits that don't do them in fact, do them a huge disservice. And I want to talk about that as well. But let's just look at the biggest problem, of course, is that me personally, I don't like people who sulk. I think it's an immature thing to do, particularly for adults. It might have worked with Daddy, but it's not going to work with me. I don't sulk, and I don't like to be sulked at or sulked upon. Give you an example. He does something wrong, and she's thrown into a sulk. That's it. She storms off to work, and he storms off to work, or he goes to work and leave her dealing with the kids or whatever. But let's just forget the kids for a minute. Let's just look at this. You've got the standoff now where they're sulking at one another. It's rather childish, don't you think? And you think, oh God, neither of them have grown out of it, but the man has. It's the woman that's created the problem in this instance. Because women are more prone to sulking because it worked on Daddy. And they try to impose it on their relationships with their husband or boyfriends. Anyway, the husband thinks, oh, I'm not going to fall for this old coconut. She'll get over it. And she doesn't. Because women can turn sulking into an Olympic sport. And they'll get the gold. Trust me on this, men, they'll get the gold. They could sulk till the cows come home and the oceans run dry. They really can. Anyway, from a male perspective, of course, sulking will include sleeping in the spare bedroom or him. It'll be a complete switch off of nookie, we know this. And, forget all this. He can forget getting his meals done and forget the jovial conversation, the friendship. Forget they haven't got any kids, for example, but it's an atmosphere, and is this one of them? It's a question of who's going to crumble first, isn't it, really? And it's a big irritation, and it's common throughout the houses of our land, trust me. Well, how is he going to resolve this situation? He's the guy, because he thinks with his dick, he's letting his little head rule his big head. He's thinking, oh God, I haven't had my leg over for ages, and that she's at home slamming covers around, wiping non-existent crumbs off the work surface and strutting about and just being totally not interested and doing all this. You know how they do it. Go to kiss them. The bloke tries to give her a kiss on the cheek, or he's trying in his own sweet way to creep in again, isn't he? She's get lost. Guys, tell me you've never experienced this and I won't believe you. Because she learned that little trick of her mummy. Oh, she truly did. And it worked a treat on her daddy. And now she's brought it into her relationship. You see how and what they learn. Anyway, he's in a real state now. He hasn't had sex for ages. His biological clock is ticking. His gonads are about to explode. So he thinks, I know. He's too proud to say sorry, really, because he knows bloody well it was his fault. Probably something he said, wasn't thinking. So he'll go downtown and he'll buy her a nice little ring, for example. Just to say sorry. He's too proud, you see. He won't actually physically say it. He'll buy her a little gift. So he comes back and he's got it all done, and she's doing the dishes of her own. Forget it, he hasn't had any dinner. And he'll sneak up and he'll pop the little box out and he'll say, I'm really sorry, and and she'll stop if she's got any sense, and she'll take it and she'll open it and she'll look at it. Oh, Tony, you do love me, don't you? And it's kisses and snuggles all round, and they go to bed. Well, after the event, keeping in a family show, she's in the shower, grinning like the cat that has eaten the canary. It worked a treat. He's in bed having a cigarette post-coital, scratching his now empty scrotum, thinking all is right with the world. Well, folks, this happens throughout our land on a daily basis. And it is a cancer in any relationship. Because it worked a treat until the next time. She had him hook, line and sinker. And he's too dumb to know it. What he should have done was ignore her. Plain and simple. Time is indeed a great healer. Okay. But the problem is in relationships, but time needs time. But the problem in relationships, modern ones, we ain't got the time, man. Everything happens as yesterday, and she'll know next time that she wants her own way, to pull a sulk. She knows what floats his boat. Okay, and so many men let their little head rule their big head. It is unbelievable. Because we learnt that off our daddies, us chaps. Because our daddies learnt it off their daddies. It's been going on a long time. And we end up having to buy the smile on a woman's face. And it is seriously counterproductive. Okay. It'll end up in bankruptcy for the poor sod. Possibly. And it's not a nice thing for women to do, is to sulk. I think it's an immature, childish thing to do, and they should have grown out of it. But they don't ever seem to grow out of it. No matter how old, women could sulk for the Olympics. Men would rather have a scrap, have a fight, and that's the end of the matter. Job done. Let's go and have a pint. No. Women can harbour grudges like you cannot believe. Some men can. But most men work on logic, and most women learn and survive on emotion. And they are indeed Venus and Mars, if you believe in the planets. The other problem is, of course, is that even when couples get married, one of the big casualties and signs for concern is the slow decline in the rate in which they have intimate sexual relationships, i.e. how often do they have sex? Well, of course, they're at it like rabbits when they first get married. They just can't stop, it seems. And maybe, that's just bloody marvellous for both of them. But he is King Stud. And she's his sex goddess. Can you imagine newly married? Yes. But what you rapidly find over a period of time, folks, is that because of, certainly if both couples work, not each couple can maintain this marathon Olympic performance, can they? Because one of them's going to get more tired than the other. Okay, so the frequency of such events slows down. It's no longer 3 times a day. Twice a day. It goes down to once a day, maybe once a week. Yes, if he's lucky. You see how she controls this? Of course she does. She controls the tap. And don't they know it? Because when a woman says no, she means no. Because they can live without it much more easily than men. Oh yes, men are quite pathetic in this arena. But it's okay for him pulling one off, of course, but well, it's nothing like the real thing, is there really? No, but she's learned how to control him like this. It's a control thing, And, she only wants sex when she wants sex. That's a fact. And look, in the animal kingdom, it's the same. It's the women who make the decisions of such things because it's an invasive procedure for them. For men, we can give and keep on giving. For women, they get sick of taking. Well, the frequency's gone down a bit now, and, as I say, is it a novelty thing? And he's not getting as much as he wants, and, he was the stud, and now what's happened? They have discussions, they have arguments about it, they have a timing issue. He's on nights, she's on nights, they can't synchronize their lives. And not only that, they're in debt. And it's troubling them. They have rows, you see. Refer to the earlier thoughts about debt and pressure and arguments and sulks. Yes, it's all intertwined, what we're talking. Close relationships. But, surprise, surprise, out of the blue she announces that she's going to have a baby. Now, depending on how he reacts, of course. It wasn't really planned, but he's got to show that he loves her and he'll be there for her, and if he's any good, or is he going to turn out like her father warned her that he'd turn out like? No, he's going to prove the father-in-law wrong, he's going to be a winner. But he has to accept now that he's not going to be the sex god stallion that he envisages himself to be now. In fact, he's been demoted twice. He's been demoted by the fresh baby due to pop out anytime soon. He is now number 3. It'll be the baby first for his chance of nookie and attention and love. It'll be her because she's too tired. After all, she's been looking after the baby all this time and just can't possibly spare any attention for him. She's got sore breasts. She has to breastfeed the baby on regular occasions. And to be honest with you now, she doesn't see herself as a sex goddess. She sees herself more promoted to the level of mother. Oh yes, forget your needs, men. And then obviously our boy has to decide that he is now last in the pecking order. Well, that's a big cut to his ego, isn't it? He hasn't got an ego left to look at, really. He's now demoted, and he better do as he's told, because the child support agency has made sure that he will pay now or he will pay later, or pay both ways, depending on how he reacts. But the other issue, of course, is that she's putting on a bit of weight since the baby, and she's in denial about this. They argue about it. She hasn't quite got back to the original size of the sex goddess he married, and she's starting to put the pounds on. And he rationalizes to himself and justifies it. Well, and over a period of time, the poor woman hasn't got a chance. He starts to think, well, you can forget sex, and certainly forget the Ann Summers power tools, who, the moment she became pregnant, of course, ended up in the loft in a sealed polythene bag, never to see the light of day. And you can forget sex is purely a functional thing for her now. There's no playing around, and she's certainly not going to dress up in her nurse's uniform to satisfy him when she's got a baby to breastfeed. So what does he do? What does this poor chap do? He's got the debt. She's maybe gone part-time. She's put the weight on. She's not putting out very often. She's certainly not going to dress up, and gone are the Ann Summers power tools that they used to enjoy playing with together. And, sex is just a function for her, yet it's everything for him, with his testosterone levels hitting peak. Well, he then rapidly realizes that she wants to go part-time because the baby childminding's so expensive, and she said, well, look, if I quit work, I could be here for you to cook a meal when you come home, and I can give you more attention, I have more energy, because I'd be able to, settle a baby, and I could get more sleep. And he thinks, she gets more sleep, and the baby's more settled, that means more sex. Yes, this is the silly little man's thinking at this stage. What's in it for him? Not what's in it for the baby or the wife or the relationship. What's in it for him? You see where we're going on this. But there we are. And he says, okay, go part-time then. Swagger, he's thinking. And she's thinking inside, yeah, part-time. I can go part-time. He is then basically crashed and burnt. Okay, because he hasn't quite realised yet how expensive children can be. She's putting weight on like there's no tomorrow, and there's a world famine, and she's going to eat it all before the rest of the world gets it. And of course, he's forced now to think, well, if I ain't getting it at home, I'm going to have to stray. Or he actually goes to see prostitutes or massage parlours or whatever he does, because he's getting neglected. He's a bit jealous of the baby, and he's pissed off. So what he does, he starts to fool around, you see. But the problem with her going part-time, of course, which was agreed due to her stress levels and his lack of sex, which was the real motivation for his agreement. More sex, part-time, you choose. Yes, he chose both. She goes part-time and he has more sex. Well, the sex hasn't quite materialised and worked out for him now. But the problem is with her going part-time, they're getting into debt. It took far more. She was contributing more than he realised, and now they're up to their neck in debt. And Of course he's a failure. He feels he can't afford to support his wife and child now. And the stress is on, and, she has such expensive tastes. And they argue. And they argue to the point of she'll say, well, my dad warned me not to marry someone like you loser. And, well, she used to argue in private against her father, trust me, that you're not a loser, despite what her dad says, because it was you who were going to prove her right and prove her father wrong. But you've let their side down because you are, in fact, a loser. This is how the whole thing works. So, what does he do? He goes and has an affair. That's as simple as that. But one of the things is that arguments can occur in relationships anywhere, quite frankly, very often in the bed or the bedroom or at a party. But one of the most obscene things, is, well, there's two obscene things I've seen in relationships of friends who have been in similar circumstance. Is number one, is they have a wife who mouths off at them in public. Full view of the public. That's number one of my hate list. Okay, I don't do it to my wife, and she's not really done it to me. If she did, she'd know about it. Because simply he goes to the supermarket, they're at the supermarket, and she gobs off in public and starts raising her voice because she knows Tony doesn't like raised voices, but it's embarrassing everyone looking at them. And she's giving it large with the mouth. And, well, short of clocking her in full view of the public to shut her trap, despite the warning, she goes on and on and on. Well, if it were me, I would just simply get in my car and go home and leave her to walk home with the shopping bags. Yes, I would. And I wouldn't wash my dirty washing in public for all the tea in China, quite frankly. But women generally are quite happy to mouth off. They even mouth off, anyway you like, really. I've seen them mouthing off to their partners and husbands and beating seven bells out of their children in full view of the public, which is disgraceful. They don't care, do they? When they reach their tipping point, they'll whack their kids or they'll gob off at their husbands in all sorts of places. What are the men supposed to think about this behaviour? A lot of men tolerate it. Well, if it were me, I'd just get in my car and dump her, and she'd have to get a bus home and pay for the shopping and bring the kid back. That's if I have got a kid. And she'd have to carry the shopping in. Yeah, she has to understand that you just simply cannot do this in full view of the public. It's classless. You wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't accept it either. Well, of course, it's the money thing. They do say when the bills come through the door, the love goes out the window. That's so true in so many relationships. And she, despite the lies, she's going up in weight and she's driving him heavily into debt because she has discovered online shopping on the internet while he's at work. And they start to have these separate lives under one roof. He has his little flings, his little peccadillos, and his, drinking buddies and his whatever he does, and she's doing this, and maybe she's having a bit of a fling, but more likely she's out there with her friends having a good time. But she's running up the debts and hiding the evidence. It's as simple as that. And he has a bit of suspicions. One of the best ways of discovering if this is going on, and he gets home wondering where all the money is, despite the denials. Just squat outside the house and watch these white vans turning up outside your house every 10 minutes to see if there's a parcel being dropped off. Oh, for sure, catalogues. These were the bane of many men's lives when the women discovered catalogue shopping or online shopping from eBay, etc. Catalogue every day. And he's thinking that's where the money's going. And he won't interrogate her bank account because they have separate bank accounts. Huge mistake. Nothing wrong with having a deposit account, but there's probably more money going into hers away from his than vice versa. Well, he's faced with the big D now, isn't he? Can he afford to lose her? Can he afford a divorce? He wants one for sure because it's not working out. And all the time, he's thinking about getting his leg over. He's thinking so full of self-pity. But all the time, this was all manageable if only they spoke together. But they don't. Communication in any relationship is essential. But she goes through bouts of serious sulking. She's run him into the ground. She embarrasses him in public. She doesn't put out as often as he'd like. It's ever likely, isn't it, that it's going to be goodnight Vienna on that relationship. Well, there we are. That's why we have such a high divorce rate, because it's so easy to get a divorce. Nobody seems to want to work through their problems in any relationships anymore. They just see it as an easy out. And that is why there are so many single women out there with husbands who are estranged, or they're single because they never got married but they got pregnant and tried to entrap a man. We have so many in this country now of single women or divorced women or separated women with baggage. And if you really want to look behind the scenes and wonder why there's so many single parent women out there with estranged boyfriends and husbands who don't pay child support and just run away, I've just explained the reasons why. Because fundamentally, women put their children before their husband, and the men put their dick before anything. And they are ruled, they let their little heads rule their big heads. So often it is detrimental to man's very survival. Comments below. I could go on. I'm not a marriage guidance counsellor, but what I would say to any man involved in that divorce is get yourself a female divorce lawyer. Because it's the female divorce lawyers that know how the embittered, angry soon-to-be ex-wife is and how they think it. You've got to fight fire with fire, and you need to have a female divorce lawyer acting on your behalf if you're going to at least get away with a little bit of pride at the end of the whole affair anyway, because she will know exactly how a woman thinks. Call me Henry Higgins, and I'm looking for my fair lady. Well, I found her really, but for the sake of this video, I hope you get the message. Okay? Learn to communicate, and don't let children run the show. And men, stop letting your little head rule your big head. And women, how very dare you have an opinion? Only kidding. I'm so Victorian at times.